It's midday here in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Approved presidential candidate withdraws following Senegal's elusive consensus on election timing. Guinea's transitional government dissolves cabinet, clearing path for new appointments and interim leadership.
Having regard to the decree appointing the members of the government based on Articles 1 and 2, hereby dissolved the cabinet.
Niger's transitional president initiates government reshuffle, expanding cabinet and restructured Ministry of Mines. And Ghana's Electoral Commission reverses decision on indelible ink, citing public concerns and the need for consensus ahead of elections.
We've had the consensus of the general public. We've had the consensus of parliamentarians across the aisle, the MPP and the NDC, civil society members. And we've come to the conclusion that if by using the indelible ink, people will have more confidence in the process, why not?
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. Well, let's begin in Senegal here, where amidst the ongoing political crisis, consensus on conducting the presidential election before President Macky Sall's term ends on April 2 remains elusive, as consultations with political stakeholders are underway. In a press conference on Monday, the Senegalese Democratic Party, PDS, expressed readiness to engage in dialogue. As Tawfiq Abdul Nasser report, Rose Wardini, an approved candidate by the Constitutional Council, declared her withdrawal.
The gynecologist and 2024 presidential candidate, who was recently held in police custody due to her dual French and Senegalese nationality, has decided to withdraw from the upcoming presidential election. In advocating for the election to take place before the conclusion of Macky Sall's term, Rose Wardini faces skepticism from the Senegalese Democratic Party, PDS. In a press conference on Monday, the PDS expressed doubt about the feasibility of holding the ballot on February 25, citing the Constitutional Council's decision as reinforcement for their stance. The PDS is also urging President Macky Sall to take measures ensuring a peaceful and democratic future for Senegal. The political party, led by former Senegalese President Abdoulaye Wade, has expressed openness to participating in the dialogue initiated by the head of state. Recall, President Sall on Friday committed to fully implementing the Constitutional Council's decision to cancel the postponement of the presidential election scheduled for February 25. This decision followed appeals lodged by presidential candidates and deputies, leading the High Court to overturn the decree issued on February 3.
Tawfiq Abdul Nasser filed that report. Let's cross over now to Guinea, where the transitional government announced the dissolution of its cabinet on Monday, paving the way for the appointment of new cabinet members. Brigadier General Amara Kamara, the Guinean Minister Secretary General, conveyed this development in a televised statement, noting that cabinet directors and general secretaries are now tasked with managing the ongoing affairs of the government. For more details, let's join Nugubi.
The Guinean Minister Secretary General in the statement announced the removal of all ministers from their duties, leading to the assignment of responsibilities to cabinet directors, general secretaries and their deputies, who will oversee current affairs until the formation of a new government.
The President of the Republic, having regard to the transition character, having regard to the law on the general organization of public administration, having regard to the ordinance extending national laws, international conventions, treaties and agreements in force on September 5, 2021, having regard to the decree appointing a prime minister as head of government, having regard to the decree establishing the structure of the government, having regard to the decree appointing the members of the government based on Articles 1 and 2, hereby dissolved the cabinet.
The existing government in office until February 19 had undergone minimal changes since its inception a few weeks after the coup on September 5, 2021. While significant portfolios like the Ministry of Justice and Health have seen changes, there has not been a comprehensive reshuffling. Bernard Gumo, who took office on July 16, 2022, replaced Mohamed Bevoge due to health reasons. Rumors of Gumu facing challenges surfaced at the beginning of the September school year. The upcoming team faces a formidable task as a transitional government led by Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya in power since September 2021, has a 10-month time frame to organize elections and transition power to civilians as per the agreement with ECOWAS. Guinea is currently grappling with a political crisis marked by a lack of re-established dialogue between the authorities and political parties.
Ogubierika reporting there. In a related development, the Nigerian Transitional President, General Abdurrahman Chani, on Monday, implemented a minor government reshuffle. The team headed by Mohamed Lamin Zain has expanded from 25 to 27 ministers, incorporating 8 military personnel. Additionally, the Ministry of Mines has undergone restructuring, now divided into 3 distinct ministerial portfolios. Augustine Kohli has more details in this report by our Niamey correspondent Murtala Zubairu.
No explanation has been provided regarding the recent government reshuffle, leaving Nigerians curious about the rationale behind restructuring the Ministry of Mines, Energy and Petroleum. The populace remains engaged in the discourse, questioning the significance of this move.
With this crushing, the work will be there. Now each minister will have the opportunity to control his sector of activity very well. And that's going to bear fruit too. I think that splitting the ministry into 3 is not a good idea, because we are looking for money, and every time we call, we charge people 10 CFA francs. And now, if we have to split the ministry into 3, we have to increase the number of cabinet directors and heads of cabinet drivers.
Set up at the beginning of August 2023, a few weeks after the July 26 coup, the transitional government, led by Mohamed Lamin Zain and his team, has yet to effectively address the concerns of the population. Civil society actors, including Kimba Amadou, Secretary General of the Consultation Framework for Democratic Struggles, anticipate more decisive actions from the government.
It's not normal at a time when citizens are experiencing life safety in their skin, when we are heading towards Ramadan, when everything is expensive, and the state must also create the conditions to nibble away at a good part of the national budget. That's a worry for us Nigerian citizens.
Since the coup on July 26, Niger has found itself ensnared in a severe economic downturn, exacerbated in part by the sanctions imposed by ECOWAS. The citizenry persists in expressing discontent over the escalating cost of living.
Our report was voiced by Augustine Kohli and filed in by our Niamey correspondent Murtala Zubairu. Well, we remain in Niger as the National Executive Board of the Autonomous Magistrates Union, SAMAN, on Monday criticized the approach taken by the Commission to combat economic, financial and tax-related crime. The Magistrates Union also called on its militants sitting in this institution to withdraw. Dubu Yahya is the Secretary General of SAMAN.
It is with great surprise that our union learned from the first in charge of the COLDEF that his institution is working to legally clear the files during the trials of justice. This grave statement for the ill-fated resident, if it were to be implemented by the authorities of the transition, would create for our fellow citizens ambient legal and judicial insecurity and the judicial and legal insecurity of the environment. And it was up to us, the will of some actors, to stop the president of the transition committee from taking actions. This is why, aware of the serious nature of this 10th complaint, which has been denounced 20 times since the creation of the Administrative Commission and in the face of the law of defense, someone bears witness to the national and international opinion of this cabal against the judiciary of our country, but we keep the CNSP at risk of an unprecedented institutional crisis. We have been working on this project for many years, with a confessed plot aiming at judicial power at a time when our fellow citizens are thirsty for justice. Ask these militant people in this institution called COLDEF, we see the predator of the fundamental rights of citizens to withdraw without delay to avoid being held accountable for the scoundrel against Nigerian judicial power.
Pour éviter d'être comptable de cette gageure contre le pouvoir judiciaire nigérien.
Dubu Yahya is the Secretary General of SAMAN.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, let's take it down to Ghana, where the Electoral Commission EC says it has abandoned its decision to eliminate the use of indelible ink in this year's elections. This follows numerous objections to the proposal by Ghanaians and the various political parties. In an interview with a local media channel, the Deputy Electoral Commission in charge of corporate services, Eric Asare Bosman, said the decision was very necessary in building trust and consensus ahead of the December polls. The minority caucus in Parliament earlier accused the Electoral Commission of breaching the Constitution by abandoning the use of indelible ink in the upcoming elections. But AC Chair John Mensah had insisted that prudent measures have been put in place by the Commission to improve the electoral process and ensure a robust identification system. Back in the stands by EC Chair, Eric Asare Bosman said the EC was aiming to avoid double verification in the general elections.
We want to ensure that everything we have to do to make Ghana's democracy a success, we'll do it. Last year, we made it very clear that we thought when you look at the procedures in our elections, the idea of using the indelible ink is like you are using 2 layers of verification. So the Commission said if Mr. Evans Mensah is coming to vote, Mr. Evans Mensah will be verified electronically for us to know that indeed it's Mr. Mensah who has been verified. So when you want to go ahead and use the indelible ink, then clearly you don't have confidence in your biometric register. So as a result of that, we postulated that it will be better to do away with the indelible ink. But as a listening institution, we've had the concerns of the general public, we've had the concerns of parliamentarians across the aisle, the MPP and the NDC, civil society members, and we've come to the conclusion that if by using the indelible ink, people will have more confidence in the process, why not? Although we still believe that when you do it, you are creating a dual layer of verification.
Dr. Eric Asare Bosman is Ghana's Deputy EC Commissioner in charge of corporate services. Meanwhile, an anti-corruption body, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, is warning of an imminent threat of proceeds of serious and organized crimes infiltrating Ghanaian politics, together with the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition and the Africa Center for Energy Policy ASEP. The anti-corruption bodies fear this has the potential of compromising Ghana's democratic credentials. From Accra, WADR's Nadine Etete report.
The caution comes after widely reported monetary inducements that characterized the presidential and parliamentary primaries of the governing NPP and the opposition NDC. At today's workshop held to galvanize the support of community and political youth leaders, the Ghana Integrity Initiative reiterated how politicians stand exposed to the trappings of organized, illicit and criminally intentioned elements ready to fund political campaigns in return for corrupt favors. Michael Bwedi is the fundraising manager for the Ghana Integrity Initiative.
The cost of political campaigns in Ghana is rising. Between 2016 and 2020, it jumped from about a little over $300,000 to $693,000 to elect an MP in Ghana. That is a lot. So how are they able to fund the election? There is a CDD study that shows that there are incidences where persons engaged in serious and organized crime gets involved in political party financing.
Michael Bwedi wants state institutions, including the Electoral Commission and the Office of the Special Prosecutor, to go beyond receiving audited accounts of political parties and making arrests.
Begin to raise the questions as to who are the people who are financing electoral campaigns in this country. The Electoral Commission must also take its mandate of receiving audited accounts from the political parties a bit more serious than it is doing now. And let us go beyond just the presentation of the account, but scrutinize where the funds that the political parties use are generated from. Fortunately, we have beneficial ownership disclosure clauses in our new company's code.
He says investigations should extend to sources where politicians caught in the web of vote buying get their funds from. For WADR, Nadine Etete, Accra.
From Ghana now, we head to Nigeria, where fuel tanker drivers began a strike on Monday over rising operational costs due to the recent second devaluation of the naira currency within a year and over the state of the country's roads, a union official said. The Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, NATO, which groups thousands of truck owners and drivers responsible for fuel distribution, are pushing for higher freight charges from fuel marketers due to rising costs. Nigeria, under the old subsidy regime, doubled freight charges to 20 naira for the 6 kobo per litre in 2021 to support deliveries of fuel and maintain uniform prices nationwide. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Approved presidential candidate withdraws following Senegal's elusive consensus on election timing. Guinea's transitional government dissolves cabinet clearing path for new appointments and interim leadership. Niger's transitional president initiates government reshuffle, expanding cabinet and restructuring Ministry of Mines. Ghana's Electoral Commission reverses decision on indelible ink, citing public concerns and the need for consensus ahead of elections. And still ahead, police in the Gambia confirmed complaints from a dozen people about missing manhood. We don't have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We are streaming live on WADR.org, Facebook, and YouTube at WADR News. At least 15 people were killed and 46 others injured in a ghastly traffic accident that occurred on Monday in Kesodougou, central Mali. The Malian Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure in a press release stated that a bus from the Jara Transport Company coming from Mopti to Bamako collided with a 10-ton truck traveling in the opposite direction. It added that the provisional report shows 15 people killed, 46 very injured, including serious cases. All the victims were transported to the Somino Dolo Hospital Center in Mopti by civil protection agents. Recall, a similar accident occurred in June 2023 involving 2 passenger transport buses on the road linking Fana and Konobugu, causing the death of 15 people with 32 others injured. Let's head to the Gambia, where the police have confirmed receiving complaints from a dozen people about their manhood disappearing in Faji Kunda, a community on the outskirts of Banjul, on Monday evening. It is reported that an investigative police officer on the case also had his manhood taken. Our Banjul correspondent Sangule Janko spoke to the police spokesperson ASP Binta Njai on this development.
It's a complaint we received, but we can't confirm if it is true or false, because when we received the complaint, all the complainants were taken to the hospital for medical examination, but there was no diagnosis to confirm that claim. So I don't know whether to confirm that it is true or false, because medically nothing of that sort was proven. But yes, we have received complaints of that.
And I also understand that the CID officer involved in the investigations also manhood was missing. I don't know how true this is as well.
That I can't confirm. What I can confirm is that we have 11 complainants, but whether a CID officer was involved or not is something I can't confirm.
If you say medically proven, these 11 people, what happened? Are their manhood there or not?
Physically, it's present. So maybe it's a spiritual thing, but that is not for the police to determine. And I don't think the doctor was able to determine that either.
But physically, their manhoods were with them?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know what they mean by manhood is gone then in that case.
Well, I wouldn't know either. I think what happened was when the medical examination was done and it was realized that all their manhood or physical organ was present, they were advised to take a lot of water and report tomorrow for another examination.
That was the Gambia Police spokesperson Binta Njai speaking there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Well, let's head back to Monrovia as we join Darlington Popper for the newspaper review.
For today's edition of Press Review, we have with us the Front Page Africa newspaper, the News newspaper, and the Hot Pepper newspaper. We will begin a review process with the Front Page Africa newspaper with the bold banner headline, Fighters Hindering LEC's Smooth Operations. That's the Liberia Electricity Corporation. Let's take a gist of this story. The Liberia Electricity Corporation, under its all-Liberian management team, has been given high ratings since it took over the entity in July 2022. However, the reintroduction of the power shading measures due to the low water volume in the St. Paul River as a result of the dry season has created dissatisfaction among some members of the public and prompted the House of Representatives to launch an immediate investigation. We will leave it right there. Stay on the Front Page Africa newspaper. Ultimatum for another protest, and we see the photographs of scores of widows believed to be widows of the defunct Armed Forces of Liberia personnel, AFL. EU to support Ubuakai. On the back page of the Front Page Africa newspaper is all about sports. From the Front Page Africa newspaper, we take the News newspaper. Ubuakai removes tenured official. Where is the change? Liberia, the candle of democracy and political transparency on the African continent. Minister Yanti speaks on behalf of President Ubuakai. On the back page of the Hot Pepper newspaper, AFL widows threatening to sit and cook in the streets in protest if what? Gives Ubuakai administration up to March 15. Grand Crew Technical College praises Speaker J. Funati Kofa. On that note, that is how I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. On that note, thank you so much for following, and bye-bye.
Many thanks, Darlington Papadei Monrovia with the newspaper review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Morgan Asogba, an international relations expert and a Newslink contributor. He takes a look at this simultaneous cabinet reshuffle in Guinea and Niger ahead of the ECOWAS summit in Abuja on Saturday.
Well, it is difficult to read the mind of these leaders when you are not close to them. And even when you are close to them, you must be part of the very, let's say, reduced circle to understand the direction they are taking. But when you want to read the fact, you obviously understand that Guinea is moving towards, if everything is to be respected, the transition to the civilian. And we are in 2024. So there is a referendum that has been planned. Probably the leadership that was entrusted with powers previously had an agenda, and now for these very sensitive periods, there might be a need of having different type of competencies. We will discover these only when the new government will be fully established and appreciate if the key actors that will be chosen will be more inclined towards civilian transition, how to handle the referendum, how to put in place the normal way to give back power to civilians, or we will still have some very strong military leaders occupying key positions that could lead to this transition.
What do you make out of this critical appointment and minor cabinet reshuffle made by Niger? Does this have anything to do with the formation of the Sahel Alliance states and its integration, and perhaps an outcome, a positive outcome in the planned summit by ECOWAS to look at these three states, which include Niger?
When it comes to Niger, it's a different other story. The dialogue is going to definitely happen, but not oriented towards the cancelling of the withdrawal or establishing a dynamic that could lead Niger to still fit in the regional integration process within ECOWAS. When you look at the reshuffle of the leadership of the cabinet in Niger, it is oriented towards critical investment strategy and dealing with partners you have mining, you have petrol, and you have energy. So these are areas that need to be strengthened and enhanced in order to allow Niger to stand tall in terms of economic freedom.
Morgan Asogba is an international relations expert and a Newslink contributor. Let's now join Sankli Janko for sport news.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Emas Faye has been appointed as the permanent head coach of Ivory Coast. Faye was on Monday rewarded for guiding Ivory Coast to the African Cup of Nations title as interim coach by being given the job full-time. Faye was appointed as replacement for French coach Jean-Louis Gasset, who was sacked following the dismal start to the African Cup of Nations. The AFCON hosts were facing elimination before he took charge, but the Ivorian turned their fortunes around. The former Ivory Coast international Faye eventually led his country to their third AFCON title in the most dramatic fashion. And Liberia has appointed Mario Marinisia as the head coach of the senior national team, the Lone Stars of Liberia. The Romanian national, who was served as the head coach of the Malawi national football team in April 2023, now has a heavy tax in his 2-year contract with Liberia to qualify the country for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. He has been speaking to sports reporters in Monrovia following his unveiling on Monday by the FA.
Next 3 weeks, all of us, we need to work together towards qualifying for these 2 matches, which actually they are extremely important. They are paramount for us to qualify.
That was Liberia's new national team head coach, Mario Marinisia, speaking to the press after his unveiling. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudaju for the technical assistance. Let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, WADR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Emo.